The third task of mourning is to adjust to a world without the deceased. Once someone we love dies, we have to adjust to the fact that we can't live exactly the way that we did before. The person that we were so close to isn't there the way that they were. And so the same way is going to be for our pastoral planning process. We are going to need to adjust to our new situation. And adjustment has to occur on three different areas, three different levels. There's an external, an internal, and a spiritual level. External has to do with how the loss affects our everyday functioning within the world. Internal is about how the loss affects my sense of self. And spiritual is how the loss affects my beliefs, my values, my different assumptions about the world. So external adjustment has to do with how it affects our everyday functioning. And for our situation with pastoral planning, it means adjusting to the new environment of our parishes. And it can mean different things for different people depending upon your relation to your current parish and parishes. For some, it may mean the change in the way that you attend Mass. For others, certain parish groups, it may mean not assuming that the priest is going to be the one who does everything, or that he's going to be able to be at every single meeting. For certain parish leaders, it may mean taking on greater responsibility and taking care of parish needs. Certainly for us as priests, there's a great external change for us of how we function. Second is the internal adjustments that we have to make, adjusting to a new sense of ourself, our own self. And this is very true when someone that we love dies. It can feel like a part of us dies with them. And I would say this is especially true for, say, a spouse or another close family member. Christian writer C.S. Lewis, who lost his wife, he actually was eventually, through the process of grieving, was able to even find comfort in this reality. Even her death wasn't something that they did separate from each other, since he himself also participated in a part of that moment of death. And so if we apply this to our pastoral planning, the main adjustment, I think, in our sense of self is to begin to see ourselves not just as members of just our single parish, but to identify ourselves also as part of the larger family of parishes. So not to see our parishes so much as in opposition to each other, as that we each have unique gifts that we can bring to one another and enrich our different communities. The third area is that of spiritual adjustment, of how the loss affects our beliefs, our values, and our assumptions about the world. And I think for us in our situation, loss can shake the foundations of certain assumptions that we've made, maybe for us in particular about the church, about her leaders, and even about God. Maybe certain thoughts might come to our mind in this, like, I never thought that my community could be the one to dwindle in the way that it has, in the way that maybe other places have. But that is a reality, is that not every community, every town that's ever existed still exists today. Maybe it has to do with our ideas about the bishop or the chancery. Maybe it's even ideas that they're just out to get us. They want to close us. They have everything decided already, don't they? What's the point of us even going through this process? They've already got everything determined. No, that's not the case. They don't have everything determined. That's why they're giving us part of this process. And they're certainly not out to get us. They really truly desire our flourishing in our communities. Maybe it's, certain assumptions that we thought coming from our faith. Didn't Jesus say that the gates of hell would never prevail against the church? Wouldn't God make sure his church never dies? Yet it seems like that's what's happening. Well, it's true that the church in general, yes, is protected from ever being destroyed and will always exist, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every individual church in every place will always continue to be there, especially if maybe there's no longer people who live there, or maybe we fail to pass on our faith. It could certainly end. But we do find, even as our area seems to be diminishing, that the church is growing rapidly in other places around the world. When it comes to this kind of spiritual adjustment, we can have the greatest success in this area if we can redefine the loss that we're experiencing in a way that can redound to our benefit, to the benefit of our parishes and our communities. And it is true that death can really shatter the core of one's life purposes, and so it's important to find new meaning in the face of loss, to find true meaning in Jesus Christ. And that's why we've been focusing so much in this pastoral planning process on what the meaning of this is meant to be. That this is really an opportunity for our parishes to become missional rather than stuck in self-preservation. That we want to become more outward looking in order to draw more people into Christ. And sometimes it might mean that we start smaller than we have in the past. But if we look at sacred scripture in various places, that God actually oftentimes will do the greatest with the least. That God doesn't need tons and tons of people. There were only 12 apostles to start off with, and he's able to evangelize the whole world. So this pastoral planning process will indeed require us to go through this task of mourning, to be able to adjust to a world without the deceased.